In this video, we're gonna do a story time, and I'm gonna tell the story of Thor's battle with the giant Hrungnir. Coming up. Welcome to the Northwoods Kindred. I'm your Gothi Bodvarr, and on this channel we talk about everything Asatru Kindred related. So hit that subscribe button if you want to see how we do it in the Northwoods Kindred. Today, we're gonna tell a little story about the god Thor. Why? Because you can't really honor the gods if you don't know their struggles. So let's get into it. So as it happens, one time Odin was not content with sitting on his throne and being able to hear and see everything that happened in all 9 worlds. He was just bored. So Odin mounts Sleipnir and decides he's gonna go for a ride, and he's not just gonna watch and see what's going on around all the worlds. He's gonna go experience something. So he just gets on his horse and goes. So in his travels, he travels through Jotunheim, and as it happened, the giant Hrungnir spotted him charging across the land and across the sky, and he stopped him and he said, "I don't know who you are, but I want to tell you that you have a magnificent animal, and it seems like he's riding as much on ground as he is in the air, and I think that that's exceptional." And Odin says, "This is the most exceptional animal in all of 9 worlds." Hrungnir says, "Well, apparently you don't know of my animal. My animal is the most exceptional animal in all of the 9 worlds." And Odin says, "I will wager my head that Sleipnir is better than all other horses." And Hrungnir says, "You have a wager." So Odin jumps on Sleipnir and takes off. He does not wait for Hrungnir to rally his horse. So Hrungnir mounts his mount and he takes off after Odin. And they charge through the lands of the giants and across the poison rivers and into the land of the gods and in past the walls of Asgard and on to Valhalla. And once they arrive at Valhalla, Hrungnir realizes that his arrogance has left him vulnerable to the wrath of the gods. So now he's very concerned that he is within the halls of the gods, completely defenseless because he did not bring his weapons. All he has is his horse and his cunning. But Odin is so happy that he got to be able to go out, have a race, have a good time, that he invites Hrungnir into the halls of Valhalla to have a drink. He invites him to sit down at the table with the Einhar as they're flowing back in from doing battle for the day. Now in Valhalla, Hrungnir is extremely happy that he's not being served a ration of death. And he sits down to drink, and he's very boastful, but you would expect he would be. But the more he gets drunk, and it seems like Freya is actually up to something, because she just keeps topping his horn up. Freya keeps filling up his cup, he keeps downing his cup, and very soon after, he is extremely inebriated. So Hrungnir is very inebriated, and he starts boasting, and he starts talking smack, and he tells the gods, "Very soon, at Ragnarok, I'm going to come and destroy this hall. I'm going to destroy all of you, save 2. Save 2. I'm going to take Sif and Freya and carry him back to my hall." Ooh, Freya did not like that, but Freya's got metal, so she keeps filling that cup up and letting it happen. Eventually, the gods and Odin grow very weary of listening to him run his mouth about what he's gonna do at the end of times. So they send a messenger for Thor, who is out slaying internet trolls and destroying all the bad creatures. They send a message for Thor. Thor comes back in the hall, brandishes his hammer, and threatens to murder this giant right there in the hall of the gods. But the gods don't like that. See, the halls of the gods are sacred, and they don't want to shed blood of their enemies, especially an unarmed enemy, in their halls. But Hrungnir doesn't know this, so he's scared to death. So he starts making deals, and he basically tells Almighty Thor that you will gain no glory from slaughtering a drunk enemy who is unarmed in your stead. The rules of hospitality must apply. So he challenges Thor to a battle 3 days hence at a battlefield that's situated right between Jotunheim and Asgard. In 3 days' time, they meet at the battlefield Hrungnir, which is a battlefield situated right between Asgard and Jotunheim. As part of the terms of this Holmgang, they were each allowed to bring one squire with them to support their combat as well as do combat themselves. Hrungnir did not have a squire, so he went back and he explained his situation to his fellow giants, and they dredged the waterways and pulled up as much clay as they could, and they created this being named Mistwader, or Malkikalf. I think I said that right. So they create this big giant being who's like 9 leagues tall and 9 leagues wide, but they have trouble finding a heart that will give him life. So they sacrifice a mare and take the mare's heart. So now you have this gigantic clay being with the heart of a mare, the skittish, timid, little apprehensive heart of a mare, getting ready to do battle with Thor and Thesi, who is Thor's companion squire, who was given to him on a previous journey to Utgard-Loki. So Thor and Thesi are approaching the battle area. They find Hrungnir and Mistwader waiting for the battle to commence. And the ground starts shaking, the earth starts rumbling, and Thesi convinces Hrungnir that Thor is going to attack him from below. So he stands on his shield, so he has no shield to protect him. He is said to have a head of flint and a heart of flint, so he's strong and stout. So he stands on his shield, afraid that Thor is going to come up from below, and Thesi immediately sets out after Mistwader to destroy this clay giant. When Thor sees that Hrungnir is essentially defenseless and standing on his shield, he hurls Mjolnir at the giant, directly at his head. The giant sees this and hurls his whetstone, or his big flint rock, back at Thor, and this stone and Mjolnir collide in midair and shatter into his billion pieces, and that is the source of all flint on Earth, and also the inspiration for the Thor's hammers that I sell on my website with a fire striker on them. And I suspect possibly even the inspiration for some Thor's hammers that they wore during the Viking Age that were made of iron and could potentially strike a spark on a flint. After Mjolnir shatters this stone in midair, it continues on its path, strikes Hrungnir directly in the forehead, and kills the giant where he stands. When he falls, one leg flops over mighty Thor and pins him to the ground. Now Thor and all the other gods gather to try and lift this one leg off of Thor, and nobody can lift the leg. So he's pinned under this dead giant's leg on the battlefield. Now, after all the gods have tried and failed, Thor's son Magni, only 3 days old, shows up, commends his father on the battle, tells his father that if he would have just called him earlier, he would have done the giant in with one punch. So he brags a little. He lifts the giant's leg off of his father, Thor, and Thor gifts his son with the giant Thesi's amazing horse, which is second only to Sleipnir. And they collectively make their way back to Asgard, seemingly the end of this particular ordeal. However, when Mjolnir smashed against the giant's weapon and shattered all the flint, Thor caught a small piece in his forehead, a small piece of flint, and that remained there. And regardless of Thor and Sif trying to remove that piece of flint, no one could get it out. So they sent for the witch Groa, and Groa came and started singing chants over Thor for what seemed like all night. She's chanting over Thor to loosen this flint so it can be pulled from his head. But when he feels the flint starting to move and loosen, he gets super excited, and he starts to tell Groa about his encounter with, and this depends on the translation. Some translations it's her husband, some translations it's her son, but we'll say her son. So Thor had encountered her son, who had been carted off by frost giants a long time ago. So Thor, being so excited, he tells Groa that he had encountered her son, Orvandil, and carried him out of the realm of the frost giants over poisoned rivers in a backpack not unlike this. But the kid kept sticking his toes through the webbing, so his toes would stick out, and one of them got frozen, and Thor accidentally broke it off. So he cast this toe into the sky to be a star, which in the north is known as Orvandil's toe. So he brings Groa outside and says, "Hey, If you need proof, have you ever seen that star before? When his toe froze and broke off, I collected it and cast it into the sky to commemorate his journey. I released him when we cleared Jotunheim in the realm of the frost giants, and he should be home soon. Oh, she was so ecstatic. She went outside, she looked at the stars, she completely forgot her spell. And when she was trying to think up where she was at in the spell, she just kept messing it up. She could not find her place, she could not remember her spell, and therefore she could not remove the flint from Thor's head. And there it still remains. So you could say that fire is always on Thor's mind. You could say that Thor gave the ability to make fire to all of mankind. And now that is one of my favorite stories of Thor. Of course, there's many, many more. He was a very beloved god. Many, many place names are named after Thor, as well as human names. So Thor absolutely deserves our admiration and our respect. But it's always nice to just go back and reread and relearn those stories and read different translations, because the stories, they always differ a little depending on who translated it and from what document they got it. I hope you enjoyed that story. We have many more to come. If you enjoyed that, go ahead and throw it down in the comments. Tell me, what stories do you want me to share? Because there's a lot of them. They're all really good, and I'm having trouble making up my mind on what stories I want to tell you first. So you can tell me what you want to hear, or at least what you want to hear my interpretation of. Thank you for taking a walk with me, and may you find strength and inspiration in Almighty Thor to help you conquer your own daily ordeal. Hail to folk.